Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Kion's Legacy, Part 5, Not Abandoned. In 3 seconds flat, I was running at full speed through the grasses towards where Koda had come. My cousin scurried to catch up with me. When he was by my side, he turned his head to look into my eyes and said, "He's at Diamond Peak." With a hopeful smile on my face and excitement building inside me, I picked up my pace and ran full speed towards the bluff known as Diamond Peak. "Good luck," Koda yelled as he watched me run further ahead of him. I ran as fast as I could towards the peak, racing past critters and swerving past herds. Everyone I brushed by scooted out of the way quickly and said, "Hello, Kito." But I didn't have time to respond. I had to see if my father was really at the peak. Suddenly, a terrible feeling of doubt washed over me. A frown befell my face, and I slowed down my gallop. When I thought that Koda could have seen someone else, not my father, I panicked. Then I shook it off. "No, it has to be him. It just has to," I told myself. I resumed my running pace and continued towards Diamond Peak. As I neared the Hippo Pond, also known as Big Spring, I saw the peak in the distance. With a deep breath and a huge gulp, I splashed forward and ran right into the pond on top of the rocks. I could hear loud arguing and shouting from the peak, but one of them was definitely my father. "Dad?" I inquired to no one. I ran around the bluff to the base. I picked up my paws and ran over the lush green grass that covered the hillside. The soft grass felt good on my tired paws. As the top of the ridge came into view, I saw a group of animals gathered. When my eyes landed on the candy red color of my father's large mane, I gasped. "Daddy?" I said in a tearful whisper. He turned around and the shouting ceased. He looked at me and tears started welling up in his amber brown eyes. "Feisty," he laughed softly when he saw me. He smiled broadly and started walking over to me. I smiled too. I ran over to him and slid into his arms. His large form embraced me tenderly. I clutched his mane with my paws and dug my face into it, breathing in his scent, a scent I hadn't realized how much I missed until now. "Oh, Feisty," he breathed gently. "I missed you, Daddy," I said. "I know," Kion replied. "I missed you too, my feisty Kito." He stood up and let me go. We both wore full smiles on our faces as we looked at each other. It was then that I noticed Mom, Aunt Kira, Uncle Kovu, Grandpa, Grandma, Ash, Tina, Amma, and the other lionesses surrounding us on the large bluff. "Mom," I said, joyful tears streaming down my face. "Dad's home." "Yes," my mother replied with a small smile. I cocked my head and looked at everyone's expression. No one except Grandma and Aunt Kiara had tears in their eyes. Uncle Kovu wore a sour face, and Grandpa Simba looked worried. The others just looked mad. "What's going on?" I asked, starting to worry. Before anyone could answer me, Koda and Tani came galloping to the bluff. They stopped before they got to us. "Kion, it is you," Tani said, her eyes widening in surprise. "Hello, Tani," Dad greeted. "Cubs," King Kovu said, "why don't you go and play at Big Springs?" All of the cubs stared at him sadly and stood up. They knew it wasn't a suggestion, but a command. "But, Mom," I started, looking at her in confusion. "Go on, Kito," she demanded. Her smile was gone. I stared for another moment, then turned to Dad. "Go on," he said with a wink. All of us cubs left the bluff and slowly went down to the bottom of the cliff. We walked somberly to the pond. On our way, I asked the cubs what I had missed. "Uncle Kion came up out of the blue and walked up to us," Ash said. "He said something odd, like trouble was coming. He had an issue with some other pride that he owed something to. He said they were searching for him and he couldn't take them on alone. He needed our pride to defeat them. Your mother and my father got mad at him and they started yelling and arguing. Mom screamed stop, then asked why they couldn't just be happy that Kion had come home. But Grandpa Simba insisted that this was an urgent matter. They discussed it a little more, then you came. Everyone stopped yelling when you ran up. So far, that's all we know." "So you guys aren't scared or mad at me anymore?" I asked sheepishly. "No." Tana stepped up and said it was a petty fight, and I'm sorry. I realized how ridiculous I was being when Koda said you were picking flowers to apologize. "Oh," I said, a smile growing on my face. I saw the ugly scar that stretched across his face. "I did that?" I asked, horrified at the damage I'd done to my friend. Tana raised his paw to his face, touching the scar. "Yeah, but it's not that bad," he replied unconvincingly. "Oh, man, I'm so sorry," I said to him. We walked the rest of the way to the pond, and all stopped at the edge. The girls went off into the shade to the shade of a couple of trees. Tina, Koda, and I stopped and glanced at the bluff in the distance. Then I remembered where we were. "Big Springs," I mused quietly. "Huh?" Koda asked, tilting his head. "Oh, nothing, just talking to myself," I replied. I looked at the pond where the hippos were all lazing. "I have to do something. Would you forgive me if I left?" "Of course," Koda said. "Go on." Tana replied. "Thanks, guys," I said with a smile. I trotted over to the muddy banks of the river where a couple of hippos were resting in the water. I took a deep breath and walked a little further. "Hello there," I said to them. "Would you be so kind as to point me to Beshti?" One of the hippos lifted her head and looked at me. "Certainly," she said. "Beshti is right over there." "Thanks a ton," I called to her, already sprinting towards where she had pointed. With haste, I made my way over to where the kind hippo had told me where Beshti was. I slowed my speed when I saw a young adult male hippo splashing in the water along with several hippo calves. I saw the faded mark of the guard on his shoulder. "Beshti?" I asked quietly. Surprisingly, the hippo heard me through all the ruckus. He turned around, then looked me in the eye. His bright blue eyes went wide and his jaw dropped when he saw me. The noise and movement around us faded, and everyone watched to see what would happen next. A small smile spread across my face. Kito? Vashti asked with a wide smile swiping across his face. It's me, Vashti, I cried. I leapt into the water and let the wave of water splash over the other hippos nearby. Oh, it's been so long. How are you?